Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. If you're ready to take on your next paying clients, I have good news. My free 4 Basics of Client Attraction and How to Stand Out class is live at haileyrowe.com/client-attraction. In the class, you're going to learn the top 2 traits I recommend for most coaches and entrepreneurs if they really want to turn this into a career. You're going to learn how you can build demand for your services and stop getting crickets on your posts. You're going to learn the sales roadmap I used to improve my sales conversion rate and help my clients do the same. And you're going to learn so much more. So go to haileyrowe.com/client-attraction and get your copy of the class today.
Helps with fitness professionals who are feeling stuck with their local business, or I'll let you kind of fill in what you do a little bit more. But thanks for being here today, Billy. And why don't you share a little bit about what you do and how you got into it?
Well, yeah, that's a good place to start. It goes back to when I had my own financial awakening, and I was doing what a lot of people who are probably tuning in do, and working with people, helping them with their fitness. I was living the dream. I was newly married to my wife, Melissa, about to start a family. I was doing work that I loved, helping people with their fitness. When one day I'm getting ready for work to head to the gym, and I get a knock on the door. It was weird. It was early in the morning. It was like 7 something in the morning or earlier. I open the door and there's a jacked, bald dude on my stoop. I looked past him and saw my brand new, not my Lamborghini, but my brand new white Honda Accord hooked up to his tow truck. Our car was being repossessed, and that was, I was shocked to say the least. I looked at the guy, looked at me, and he's like, "Listen, you're behind on your payments. You're delinquent. Got to take the car." I'm like, "No, please, unhook the car." He's like, "No, I can't, man. That's why we hook it up before we knock on the door." I'm like, "Please, I'll go in. I'll get you the money, whatever it takes." He's like, "No, I got to go." He rides off, and I realize that my life is not quite what I thought it was. That led to the discovery that we had $130,000 in non-mortgage debt. We were up to our eyeballs in debt. We couldn't talk about money without arguing. It was a difficult time to say the least. But it was in that moment, or one of those moments, when we decided that we wanted something different. We were relatively young, which was a blessing. Wish I was younger, but that we had time on our side to a certain extent. Time was going to pass either way, so we started changing how we did things on the personal side. That led to me running my business a certain way. Fast forward 5 years from that moment, and we paid off all of that debt, $130,000, and I was opening my first gym right around that time. So there's a whole nother story behind there we can get into if we want. But with that said, all that debt was from prior things. It wasn't from my gym business. And we used the gym as a vehicle to pay that off in 5 years, $130K paid off. And then another 7 years later, we became totally debt-free, paying off almost $500,000, paying off our mortgage and everything. And along the way, I started helping other fitness professionals with their business and then their finances. And COVID was a real wake-up call, and how things really work for people. There's a quote by Warren Buffett that says, "When the tide comes up, you can see who's swimming naked or skinny dipping." It's this idea that we don't really know how bad things are until there's something shocking or something quote unquote surprising that happens, and it kind of exposes us. And we all know, well, whoever's been around since then knows that lots of gyms didn't make it through COVID. There's a lot of good that came out of it, but it was a difficult time and could have been prevented if certain practices would have been adhered to. But yeah, enough about me. What is that?
Yeah. Wow. What a story. Yeah, and I actually remembered that Warren Buffett quote, and I heard it during the pandemic for some reason. I
Yeah.
think I was at a webinar or something about like these are crazy times, and they used that quote, and I was like, that is a very good quote and very true. So tell me a little bit about, when you work with fitness professionals, and they own a gym or whatever it is that they do, what are some of the common, you know, mistakes or red flags that they should watch out for when it comes to money?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many. A couple of ones that come to mind are just not having clarity. I think that's a big issue for people. And when we don't have clarity, it's hard to know what to do because we're not sure where we are. Maybe there's not clarity where they are. Maybe there's not clarity where they were, meaning like how did it go the past month, 3 months, past year, whatever the time period is. And then where do we want to go? So just like any other area, if we're coaching somebody on, I mean, anything, right? Like, learning how to play the guitar. I mean, just making up a random thing. But yeah, I want to know where are you at currently? Do you know? I mean, that's the last thing I know about, but I guess it's like, do you know the chords? Do you know this? Do you know that? And then we know where do we want to go? What are we going to work on? So yeah, just really helping them achieve their financial goals. A lot of that comes down to giving them clarity so that they can gain confidence in what they're doing. Because it's sad and frustrating when you're doing a lot, you're working hard, you're spinning your wheels, in some cases working 12 or 16 hours a day, and you're not really sure if it's really doing anything and improving your life. And a lot of people just put everything into their business, and there's all these other parts of life that get neglected. And I mean, there's failed marriages, there's all types of problems that come as a result of not having that clarity. So that's sort of like broad level, but if we're getting a little more specific on what specific things, I mean, knowing their numbers, helping them understand what's happening in their business. That might come down to helping them with their financial statements. A lot of them don't have good financials, so we might help in that. And if you don't have good financials, then it's really hard to know what to do because you're basing it off of just guesses. And it's like the client that tells you, "Oh yeah, I eat perfectly," but they're way off base. And I have a degree in nutrition, and I remember learning this popular study where when people would do a dietary recall and then they would compare it to what they actually did eat, I mean, they were so far off, it was ridiculous. Like in many cases, they were like 60% off of what they were actually eating. And it's the same thing with our business and with our money. Most people they really don't know exactly what's going on. So help them gain that clarity, help them with a path forward. For some, it's helping them clear debt so they can have more freedom in their lives. For some, it's helping them grow their business in a smart way because so many people make these sort of rush decisions, and maybe they take on something that they're really not ready for, or they hire somebody because they're getting so overwhelmed when they don't really have a solid plan. When the best business owners are way more strategic, they're doing things like a budget, like a cash flow forecast, and they're looking ahead. They're saying, okay, I have some cash to cover this employee if things don't pick up quite the way I think they will, and this is what I'm projecting. These are a couple of different scenarios. And not that you're going to be so careful that you never pull the trigger, but you also don't just want to make random decisions based on emotions. You want to base it on the numbers, base it on the reality, base it on a sound strategy. So as far as exactly how that looks, I do coaching. So you might consider that like financial coaching. I also do what's more in the fractional CFO realm, which is kind of bigger picture strategy. And we also do some bookkeeping to help people clean up their financials.
Nice. Okay. And what were some of, when you were, in debt and obviously dealing with that, what were some of the steps that you took or things that really helped you get out of it? Would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels to the fitness world, which I find fascinating. So if you were to ask someone's client, like, what were the steps you took to lose 50 pounds or get double the strength or whatever the goal was, they'll probably say things like, well, first, and this is true for me, we made a decision, and that was key. There was this shift that happened sort of internally where we just had enough, and we said we're going to be doing something different. I think that's really important. We have to just decide that we're making a difference. We're not going back. We're not going to stop no matter what it takes. It's like having that commitment, that decision that you make, you're all in. So we had to do that. We also had to, like I sort of alluded to, we had to decide on where is it that we wanted to go. We don't like what's happening now. Where is it that we want to go? Where do we want to be in the next month, 3 months, 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, beyond? But we started thinking about, where do we want to go? What is our vision for ourselves? I think a lot of fitness professionals, and I correct me if I'm wrong, Hailey, but you work with a lot of fitness professionals sort of in the earlier stages. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that for them, it's especially important because I think it's so easy to say, well, I'm kind of early on, so I don't have to worry about all that stuff. But I couldn't disagree more with that mindset because what you're doing now is you're setting the foundation for the future. So what you want to do is set your business up in a way that serves you. There's this quote that says, money is an excellent servant, but a terrible master. And that applies here. We want to make sure that we are building a business and a life that allows us to do the things that we want to do. So we did that, right? So we decided where do we want to go? And it doesn't mean that's always rosy and easy, but it's just giving yourself that clarity, giving yourself the direction. And then another thing that we did, which also parallels with fitness and health goals, I think, is that we had to develop focus. There's this famous story of Bill Gates. Have you heard this with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett? Bill Gates's dad coordinated this dinner, and he said, "Let's get these people together. These are the two arguably the smartest guys out there. One in tech and one in the financial world. They've achieved monumental success. Let's get them together. It'll be interesting. We'll have some good conversations." And he looked at them. And he said, you guys are both at the top of the top in your respective fields. If you had to distill it down into one thing that helped you get to where you are, what would that be? And they looked at each other, and without missing a beat, at the exact same time, they said, focus. And when we're trying to do 10 different things, we're trying to grow a business, we're trying to pay down our debt, we're trying to hire people, we're trying to save for a house, all these things are great, but it's really hard to make traction when you don't have that focus. And it's tough because you have to say, I'm going to forego this one thing because I'm going to be focused on this other thing. Like, for example, I like to do online training maybe, but you know what? Right now I'm building my in-person training. It's like you can do both, yeah, but you could either be really good at one of them or you can be kind of like half butt at both. And we want to make sure that we're developing that focus. And there's obviously more to it than just like a blanket statement like that. But that's one of the things that we did. We decided like what's the first thing we need to do. The other thing we did was we wanted to kind of map out the steps we want to take, but we also need to get support. And that's where our coach comes in. So we've done, I can go on and on about coaching. I have had coaches throughout my entire career. I have several coaches right now, but I had coaching back then. I was getting around people who were doing some of the things that I wanted to do. And with that said, I'll mention this. I know we're live here. I do have it all distilled into a pretty short book. These are all the steps I took. So we'll definitely make that available if anyone's interested. But this shows you all the steps that we took. There are like 7 steps in here. Everything from creating a vision. Believe it or not, we wanted to become more generous through the process. We had to take an inventory of where things were, which I also mentioned. We created a spending plan. How we're going to manage that cash flow that were coming through our fingers, coming through our business. We wanted to make sure that we were not skinny dipping when the tide went down. So we developed an unexpected event fund, which is something I'm really passionate about for people to do. And then we wanted to make sure we cleared our debt because debt is crippling people from developing wealth and developing freedom. And we also want to start learning about investing. So yeah, lots behind those steps. But those are some of the things that we did.
Yeah. And I'm curious, how much of financial freedom and creating that do you think is based on just people, if they're not there, just not knowing the steps versus mindset and like thinking, oh, I got to part ways with my money and because I can't keep it. Like, I know some people have things where it's like when they make money, they immediately spend it because they don't feel comfortable just having it, or
100%.
there's just beliefs going on. So I'm curious your thoughts on the split
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's good. So they might not think they're deserving of it, right? Like, so they sort of subconsciously make these decisions that are crippling their future. And I could fall into that myself. And I've done a lot of self-reflection on why did I get into such a devastating hole? And I'm not going to turn this into Hailey becomes my therapist, but there were some deeper reasons why I was making those decisions, and that's a lot of what I do as well, is uncover some of those mindsets, some of those beliefs, so we can start looking to shape those things. There's an identity that goes along with it. So I often ask people, like, what's your financial identity? So that's something that listeners can do right now. And that's whether it's now or after we wind down here, asking yourself, write this down, how do I currently see myself with money? And be honest. I'm not looking for you to just say what you think you should say. Like, how do you really see yourself with money? Oh, I can't control it. I can never make enough. If I want to get ahead financially, I'm probably going to have to be a jerk. I'm going to have to work too many hours, and I can never do that. I don't have what it takes. There's so many of these things that we might tell ourselves, and make no mistake, those thoughts are holding you back. So we want to look to ultimately shift that identity to what you want it to be. And there are ways to do that. But to answer your question, I think a lot of it is the mindset. Even in my case, it's like this idea that, I don't know if you can relate to this, but when you really want something, like, you'll figure out how to get it. Like, everybody thinks they need, and I don't mean to like poo-poo coaches, because we are both coaches, and there's tremendous value in coaches, but like this idea that, like, I need a certain coach, or I need a certain book, and I fall into that all the time. You think there's something out there, when a lot of that is just us having to understand that we have what it takes. We can figure it out. Yes, coaches can give you a shortcut, and they can help tremendously, and information can do that. But yeah, I think acknowledging the mindset is going to be a bigger piece, and I think it has to go first. I mean, there's this other quote that says, like, we are what we are who we are because of what we do, and then we do what we do because of who we see ourselves to be, right? So it's like kind of like this double-sided coin, and you could argue, like, what's first? Am I late to all my sessions because I see myself as somebody who's late? You ever hear somebody say, like, oh, I'm always late? So, like, what is going to happen to that person? Like, they're always going to be late, right? They're literally telling themselves, I'm always late. And like kids, it's very common. Like, he's a bad kid. And so they act bad, right? Like, that's their identity, right? But if we do the opposite, and we just start showing up on time, I wonder what that would do. Maybe we would start telling ourselves, you know what, I'm actually on time usually. Yeah, maybe once in a while I get hung up or something, but I'm the type of person that is on time. So what's more important? I guess if I had to split it, I don't know, maybe right down the middle is what I would say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So it is important to know the steps and to build your knowledge about financial management.
100%.
But at the same time, it's important to realize maybe why you're in that debt situation in the first place, and what's coming up for you around money and that kind of thing. You also mentioned that you have had a lot of coaches and you're a big fan of coaching. So I'm curious, what is maybe one really valuable takeaway or best thing you've learned from a coach, or some way that coaching has really impacted you?
So I'm going to answer that. However, this is one of those things. This is a really good question, Hailey. And there's this idea, like, I always go back to the nutrition and the fitness. Like, just to go back a second about the plan and the path. Like, I remember it was like Martin Rooney. I was listening to him one time, and he's like, yeah, the average person, they probably know that an apple is better than a bag of chips. Like, so, like, how much information do we really need to teach them, right? So it's the same idea. We know that it's better to not spend money we don't have, right? So a lot of that stuff, same thing with some of the business things. We know it's probably better to reach out to leads than to scroll social media aimlessly, right? But we still kind of do these things that we know aren't going to be effective. So yeah, just to kind of illustrate your point. But then this other idea, I was watching this thing last night as I was scrolling aimlessly, right? So the guy said, you could do the exact same thing as this other guy or gal, and that doesn't mean you're going to look like them. Like, if I follow I don't know if Hailey's probably not the best example, but if I follow another person that's like my size and whatever else, and they go to the gym on Mondays and they do this and then they eat like this, I can do all of that and look totally different. Like I still have like a long body, like I'm not stocky, like there's just all these different factors. I'm not going to look like them. So yeah, it's good to see what are successful people doing. But I will say that I think it's potentially a mistake to think that if I do everything this other person does, I'm going to get the exact same results. Even with the gym business, I mean, I've had clients that did one thing and they did great. Other clients did that same thing, and it just depends. Like maybe their market is different, their culture is different. Something about it is just not quite the same. So yeah, there are best practices. I don't know. My long-winded way of saying the biggest value I've gotten out of coaching is I don't know if this is going to be what other people will get out of it, but it sounds so silly. It's almost embarrassing because I paid so much money for it. But I think the biggest thing I've gotten out of coaching is somebody to encourage me. And it sounds so silly in a lot of ways. Like I shouldn't need that because I'm a grown man. I don't need somebody to pat me on the back. But especially when it's somebody that I respect, somebody that has done a lot, and they tell me what I could do and they believe in me, that has been like a lot of fuel for me. This business is not easy. There's going to be challenges. No matter how far you get, there are going to be challenges. In fact, the further you get, the more challenges there are. So I think having somebody in your corner that believes in you, that's going to be there for you, is invaluable. With that said, yeah, I've had some strategies and tactics that have made a crazy difference. Like I had one business coach who helped me out with developing the model for my business, and I was going to go with a different model, like totally different in a lot of ways. And I decided, because of his advice, to go a different direction. And that one decision, I mean hundreds of thousands of dollars easily in increase because of that one decision. So yeah, you just never know. But I don't want to, like, I'm scared to share that. And people are like, oh, if I get a coach, I'm going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's like, yeah, you possibly, but it's going to take time. You don't know when that's going to be. So it's a lot of it's just like embracing this idea of being coached, being all in. There's not necessarily going to be a grand slam. It's going to be a lot of singles and doubles. And then there'll be some grand slams here and there. I've been at this for like almost 30 years. So there's been some grand slams, but mostly it's just these things that don't really feel like progress. But then when some point you look up and you realize there was a lot happening there.
So true. Oh my gosh. And I think you're so right to say, a lot of times we're always looking for what's the magic formula. This magic coach is going to change everything for me. This magic community I need to be a part of or mastermind or whatever. And the truth is there is no magic. It is the little things that you do over time, and having someone to help guide you on what those are or what is going to work for you as opposed to someone else, or, cheer you on, as you were saying, encourage you, makes it a lot easier and can definitely help you, move along. But it's not like, I think we need to ditch this idea that it is, I think we see on social media all the time, oh, you can go from 0 to 500K in 2 months. Like, it's just, it's like, okay, that's maybe the really rare 0.0001 exception, not the.
Yeah. Here's another weird thing that I'm like hesitant to say, because I know this is live and it's out there, so I'm not going to obviously share any names or anything, but I have lots of relationships with lots of people in the industry, and there are times where I see stuff on social media where like, there's actually more to that story that's not being told. So like here's a weird example. Like, to your point, this person made $500,000 in X amount of time, and then maybe behind the scenes, I know, but they took out like a $2 million loan. Like that's just a fake example. But if you're just isolating that one piece, and we all do that because we're all human, right? Like our clients, we're posting, the before and afters, and we're posting the success stories, and it's good marketing, and you should do that. But we all know that there's a lot that we're not saying, right? And that's normal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that you mentioned is encouragement. And I would love to know, like, how do you stay encouraged? Because I was just talking with a client recently, and when you're an entrepreneur and you're new and you're planting seeds, you are doing a lot of things that haven't caught up yet, meaning
Yeah.
like you're starting to build your first, following, you're starting to build your first leads. And it can be really easy to just say, well, I don't have clients, so therefore I'm not doing anything, I'm not successful, etc. But what I was talking with her about is look at your targets of what you're creating before the clients, like, I'm doing this many collab pitches, or I'm on this many podcasts, or I'm doing these, and judge your success off of the progress indicators that can lead to clients first, as opposed to just saying, well, I don't have clients yet, so I'm, not successful, because those targets that you're regularly hitting or doing, or the things that are within your control that are getting you closer to clients, if you look at that as your progress, you're going to feel a lot better as far as, okay, I'm moving forward, compared to the invisible, like, someone hasn't booked their call yet or whatever, and judging your success off of that. So how do you stay encouraged when maybe you're planting seeds, or you're in the middle of building your business but not seeing the fruit yet?
Yeah, that's good. And again, we could also compare that to the fitness world, right? Like we tell our clients, like, hey, you're successful not when you lose weight. You're successful when you put your sneakers on and go for a walk. That's success. Like we do have to learn to celebrate that. You think of, I don't know if you've read The Gap and the Gain, like this idea of,
Great book.
Yeah, great book. So if anybody's listening and they want to check that out, it's just a good reminder that we'll get, when we're thankful for what we have and we acknowledge how far we've come in whatever way that is, we'll get more of that. But if we're constantly thinking about what we don't have, or we're constantly thinking about that gap, oftentimes we'll just stay stuck in that because our focus is more sort of on the negative rather than how much we do have. There is this idea of, and it would be great if I can come on and be like, yeah, like I never struggle with that. Like, no, not true at all. Like, in fact, I can say that I've struggled with that in the last 48 hours because, I'm doing a lot of things and things take time. It's like when you plant seeds, eventually you're going to grow corn. But if you don't plant them, you're not going to grow anything. And there's this idea that we reap what we sow, more than we sow, and oftentimes it takes longer to sow. So that's a key concept to remember, that the most successful people, they're just the ones that are not going to give up. There's so much on this that you'll hear, but just don't give up because you're 5 yards. How many like cliches can I give, right? You're 5 yards from the end zone. Oftentimes that's very true. You just never know when that next thing is going to happen, that next relationship that you meet, that next client that you get that refers you to 5 other clients. They could be coming to you tomorrow. You just never know. So don't give up, and don't put your worth into the tangible results. Put your worth into the character that you're developing as you're developing these skills, because you are becoming better. And even if it doesn't work, you're still going to be better. So then the next thing you do is going to be that much more effective. And one of the things that helps me, because you asked me how do I stay encouraged, this is actually something one of my coaches does, is this is good for any coaches, and I know there's a lot of coaches listening, that is to point out, because a lot of times people can't see how far they've come. So a lot of times what my coach does is he'll say things like, and he's kind of subtle about it, but he's like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, I wonder if a year ago, if you would have been able to do that, or if you would have put that much effort in, and he's kind of just reminding me that, like I am growing. It does take time. So he's kind of just planting that seed in me to know that, I am further along than I was in some ways. So I think doing that for ourselves, thinking about ourselves and our journey, and then also doing that for our clients could be valuable.
I love it. Amazing. So where can people connect with you, find out more about your book, all the good stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a link that I can share, I guess. But it's also on my website. So it's yourfitnessmoneycoach.com is the website. If you do /resources, there's a link there where you can get the book and some other things. But also, if you just want to connect, let me know your takeaways or any questions or anything. You can just find me on social media, whether that's a private message or just a comment under the video. Would love to connect. And just like Hailey, I'm here to help and serve. And there's lots of great things we could do together.
So much for listening to this podcast, and if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.